Good? All right, thanks. So just let me get this straight out of the way. I'm a novice at this, and several months ago, Sean came to me and said, "Hey, that's really cool. Can you demo in our meeting?" And I said, "Are you guys that desperate? Seriously?" So all kidding aside, I hope this goes well. I do professional sales, and I present in front of an audience on a regular basis. But this is a little bit out of my comfort zone, so please bear with me. So, my story isn't that all that unique. This stuff is kind of rudimentary compared to some of the stuff that is generated out of this club, but it's just something that I've gravitated to. I started getting into turning about 2 years ago. My father and grandfather were both woodworkers, and bigger stuff than what I'm doing. But it just sort of, I'm a semi-empty nester. It just came about. I enjoy it. I really am passionate about this, and I was trying to make stuff. And I just started fiddling around with pens. I first started out with other things, the shave brushes. But the pens, I started initially was ignoring them, but I started gravitating to them and started cranking them out. And, then you end up with a big collection of them. What do you do with them? Well, I had a colleague of mine that said, "Hey, can you make me a Yankees pen? I want to give it to a friend." And I started scratching my head. It's like, I don't know. Let me look into it. So the end result is I came up, and it's evolved over time, but I produced these little pens with logos. And if I can get that on the camera, maybe not. Hold on, Lay. Okay. So this is, again, all. If there are any lawyers with Major League Baseball or NCAA, just ignore what you're hearing here today. It's just I thought, why not? People like these. I mean, initially, I started making pens and giving them away as graduation gifts when my daughter graduated high school, and I thought, well, I'll try to incorporate the color of the wood to match with the team logo. And so it's kind of evolved from word of mouth, and that's just kind of what I've done. And it goes beyond pens. As you can see, I'll pass these around just for giggles. I started, making shave brushes, and I like the idea of a shave brush because, well, first of all, I'm a big fan of shaving with a straight razor and all that. And I thought, well, gosh, who of all people need to shave? It's dudes in the military. And so I just started putting those out, and I've created these. I mean, these are just embossed decals, and then cover it in CA. And I don't know. I haven't sold these yet. I'm still waiting to order the finished knot. So anyway, what I'm going to do is just show you how the exercise goes. I'm going to try to keep this along. So if it sounds like it's getting redundant, just give me one of these signals, and I'll try to pace it along. So I don't own a drill press, and in order to make pens, you need something to drill a hole straight through. So I picked up one of these drill blanks from PSI, I believe, and so I'm not going to drill the actual blank, but what I'm going to do is show you how I would do the inlay. And so what this is a 25-30 second drill bit, which is the same size as a cigar tubed brass tube, and I'm going to drill in slightly sideways. I don't know if it's designed to use it this way, but what the hell, I've been doing it for 2 years now. So so we'll just kind of I'll just show you what I'm doing here. I'm going to set the whole, and I won't go through the whole exercise of drilling and setting up pen blanks and all that, because I assume most of you guys, passed that stage of your turning years and years ago. All right, not my home court here, so bear with me as we get things moving along. All right, so I'm just going to, now I have a little mark on the edge of the bit. It's hopefully going to line it up center. I'm just going to go in slowly. You know what? Something didn't feel right. Okay. All right, so I have a hole in the side of my blank now, and I'm going to pull this, and ideally it's centered, and that's key, because if it's not centered, when you start to turn it down, one side's going to get cut further than the other, and it's going to look like a teardrop. All right, so the next step that I do, and this is not the normal routine, I'm doing this for display purposes only, but we'll move it along because I don't have access to the bandsaw readily right now. So I'm going to inlay this with a piece of holly. I like holly. It's easy to turn, but if I'm going to put a logo on this, I want something that's going to stand out, because the membrane that I use for these decals, if you use a dark colored wood, it's just not going to show up. Holly's great. It turns up nicely. So I got to reset my chuck, because now I'm going to use this same chuck for this piece here. So I got to turn these out. Hopefully we'll get it right. Come on. Okay. All right. Sorry. All right. So again, bear with me. If you would tell me, there's probably a dozen guys in here would say, no, that's not how you would do that. But this is what I own. This is what works for me. So I now have the pen blank. And the first thing you do when you get one of these things is they don't turn with it. It's designed for drilling. And I realize that, and I'm going to use this as a spindle chuck to just kind of narrow this down. And I want to get it the diameter here so I can fit this in it. So just to kind of give you the exercise how this goes, we're just going to go ahead and do it. And all lawyering aside, hopefully we won't have any issues. Everything's different than back at home, so it's totally. Okay. All right, so I already have that turned round, and again, I'm a noob and a rookie. I like the easy tools. Sorry. I know there's a lot of old school guys that goes, no, you can't use that. You got to use the spindle gouge or something like that. It's very forgiving and easy, and I'm all about that when doing these things. So hopefully we won't destroy this as we mow, and I won't tear my knuckles off. I'm just going to bring this down relatively slowly. I got way too much speed going here. All right. Real close. Okay, so just to keep things moving along, you get the drill here. This is going to get fit in here, and I'm just putting in a coat of CA, and I would slide it in so it fits in there nice and snug. Then I'm going to take this to the bandsaw and cut it flush, and then this piece will fit nicely right in here, and I'll do the same thing. So the end result is going to be this, and I've done one ahead, so I don't have to bore you guys watching this do the whole thing. So this is the what the end result should be before you start setting. And I have the numbers in there. I use numbers to keep the grain alignment. This is bloodwood. I didn't use holly on this one. This is acrylic, and it's got a brass inlay. And then this is acrylic as well. So I'm going with a KU theme here. And then there's a separation between the two, the transition. Pen turners out here in the audience, a lot of them. So what do you use for transition between pieces? Anything? Veneer? Okay, I travel a lot. And this is something I picked up. And this is the hotel room key from Hampton Inn. And it's absolutely genius. You can see it examples up here with it. It comes out clear. I don't care what's on the logo. You will never see it. And so I have stacks of them. Let me know if you need any. So we're going to turn this. So I'm keeping things moving along, I hope, right? I haven't lost anybody. I mean, this is not too challenging, I hope. Okay. So we got that. We got this. All right, so now comes the real turning aspects of it. I need to get this out of here. Okay, so this is I'm setting this up. What the end result is going to be a trim line pen. And the only reason I use a trim line pen is it costs about $2.50 from Craft Supply. The difference, though, is a trim line pen is a lot thinner than this. It's actually close to this. But you'll see some of these are thicker. The reason I'm making them thicker is I got to be able to fit a logo in there. You can't do this with a slim line. Cigar pens are $7.50. So, I mean, I try to sell these things and try to basically pay for all the accoutrements you see over here, all my chisels, all my lays, or anything that I have. So what I'm doing is it normally comes with this center band, and I'm not a fan of it. I just throw it away. So I have to extend the blank. The blank is normally equal distance back and forth. But if I add this insert inlay transition piece, I need to extend it or add it in. And so what I'm doing is in this one here, I'm adding it in. But now the challenge is your blanks don't fit, or your tubes don't fit, right? It's equal distant tube. And what I use for, this represents my tube, and I just create these little templates. So that's the length of this tube. Goes right there. You'll see it here. It doesn't fit. It's extended. So what do I have to do? I cut it. I cut the end of the tube about 3/4 inches off here. This is the nib of the pen. It's going to fit in nice and tight. You only need a 3/8 of an inch to hold the nib. So the rest of it is just the transition piece. The rest of this is just wood in there. So instead of making customized pen blanks or the tubes, I just cut it to extend the pen blank out. Does that make sense? All right, so let's turn. Tell me I didn't bring my Oh my God, I forgot it. I need a live center. Thank you. Yes, sir. I sometimes get it over at Craft or what's the name of your store? Woodcraft. Thank you. I get it at Woodcraft, or I get it at Bell Forest. Everybody familiar with those guys? You know what? I have a list of this long of things that I need to. This will work, I guess. Yeah, I guess. And I've just spaced that piece. I knew I wasn't going to remember it all. Yeah, but and it's the biggest holly piece you can probably get is like a 1-inch, and so the bottom base of the shave brushes, that's all holly. You can rarely see it, but you need something clear or white to provide the decal background. All right. So the way I have this set up, so these bushings are for a separate kit. I don't even remember which one it is. It's not the bushing for the trim line. So bear with me. I got to move my tool thing around here a little bit, but we'll get started on this end here, which is going to receive the logo. And this thing takes a while to heat up. What's that? Oh, is it not pushing? Okay, crank it in. There we go. This is a little bit nicer than my PSI that I have back home, but it's the same style, MIDI. So what I'm trying to do is just get this round. It gets kind of hung up on the brass, and that's okay. Let's start over here. So I got an order from my neighbor for like a 9 pens. And so that's what these are. These are going to be, and they're all collegiate brands. And so initially what I was using for logos is fingernail tattoos. Who knew? Team supply stores, anybody that sells, like Dick's has them, but not very much. That's exactly what all these are. That's a true fan that has to put that logo on their fingernails, and they're like $5, and then you got to get the lead times and all that stuff. So I started getting requests for schools that don't make them, that didn't have them, and rather than tell them I don't have them, I just did a little more research, and I started using what's called water slide decals. Anybody know what those are? So, okay, so you print it off, Google it up, send it down. So far, I have a little Etsy site. I've got maybe a dozen sales, and I'm not promoting right now. No soliciting. But I've only had one school contact me and tell me to take it down. And I won't name names. It's just a big college in the Buckeye State. I'm not a fan anymore. Apparently, some lawyer got bent out of shape over it. I can assure you it's not going to stop me from selling them. I just can't sell it on Etsy. Okay, we got these pretty much round, so I'm going to get busy with the skew. Okay. Trying to move things along. I'm going to run right into the easy wood. Golly. I'm not sure why it's doing that. I might have a... So what I'm going to use is these two bushings here. Again, they were set up for a different pen. I'm going to try to get as close as I can to that. I want to that's about the diameter of the pen that I need, that I want. I got a bit of a wobble here. It might be too tight. it's real tight, which I think is causing it to bend. Yeah, it's still non-wobbling. We'll get through it here. I'll finish this back home. But what I'm going to show you here is I'm just going to generally shape it. Okay, that's real close. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to shut it down, and I'm going to pull it from the mandrel and then separate it here. So the reason I want to do this is I want these exactly the same. And there isn't any transition hardware between them. So normally what I'm going to try and do is line up the grains, and I usually try and do that just by eyeballing it. That looks good. But there's a gap there. You can feel that. So by taking it out and butting them straight up together, you're going to get, the end result should be a absolutely perfect transition. I will add these back when I start adding the glue and the decals. All right, let's just get this. I'm not a big fan of, I mean, I've made a lot of pens, probably in excess of a couple hundred. And, you know, the pen that I like is the one that you don't know it's there. It's just in your pocket. Some of these pens, they feel like you're carrying a can of beer or something in your pocket. They pull down on you. And it's, this trim line I like because it's so, it's so small and lightweight, and it's, it's just easy to work with, and gosh, if you screw it up, all right, well, it's $2, $2.50. The other thing is, being the marketer that I am, a cigar pen probably doesn't go over so well with the ladies. It's just too big. It's too masculine. All right, so that's nearly seamless. I got a bit of a bulge here, and I'm going to try and just take this down a little bit. And then we'll finish this up so it's basically seamless and nice and thin. We'll do the rest. But end result, I don't know if you can see that, but that looks pretty good. It's nice and centered. It's key to get the hole deep enough and the inlay in there all the way flat. If it comes out, or if your inlay comes in, you're going to end up with a semicircle or a half moon. So what I would then do is probably run this over a couple of coats of sandpaper. I take it up to about 400. I will go both, yeah, and then when I stop, I'll stop it and then go across. Yeah, exactly. And then I'll just do one coat of CA. and I'll leave it on this. I'll put the decal on, the water slide decal. And again, you got to print it to size, put it down, and then I'll lay it on there, and then come back, separate the pen, put the bushings back in the middle place, and then I go about 6 to 8 coats of it. And then micro mesh, wet, all the way through the progressions on that, and then I use Hut plastic polish, the white stuff, looks like milk. Run through that, and then paste wax, assembly, and done. And that's it. But that turned out nice. So the brass tube, nothing special. That's just an extra brass tube that comes from a standard cigar pen. Any questions? When I glue the inserts, I use medium, and then my coats are thin. And I use accelerator, and I only use accelerator for the finish. It's just I'm impatient, and so I like to just let's get this thing going. I was using thin or a medium, and then I wasn't letting it cure long enough, and so you get clouds up on you, and you got to go back and strip it all down, and it's a big pain in the ass. So yeah.
I think that's an excellent question. Some of us are somewhat familiar with using CA on wood.
Mm-hmm.
Having any problems to do anything special with the CA with your inserts?
Well, no. It should be a tight fit, and it's not coming out. On occasion, some of the credit card piece may come loose, but as far as I know, that is not coming out.
Not coming out, but with the CA affecting
the finish? Nothing. I've never had a single problem with it. Nothing at all. And again, I'm doing decals because I figure, okay, we're a sports nut society. I'm not doing this obviously to make money. It's just every time I get an order, it's like, all right, I can make more pens. And literally, I take the money. It's beer money. I mean, literally, that's what it is. It's just money that my wife doesn't know. When I spend it, it's like, yeah, I sold pens today, and I'm going to buy a new chisel or whatever. Yes. I am. It's a Canon color inkjet. All right, so let's talk about that briefly because, again, exercise in a lot of challenges there. So I think this is one that I actually printed off, and this is one where it's a fingernail decal. The difference is the backdrop on this one is acrylic blue, and this is holly. So you probably can't tell really the difference, but the inlay, or I'm sorry, so I went over to Hobby Lobby and bought the water slide decals. They're not called water slide decals. They're called something else, and they weren't much help, and I found them, opened up the box, looked at the directions, and they were in French. So that wasn't much help, and they didn't give me much help, and so I kind of went around and around. But you clip them out, little squares, and again, they're going to tell you, well, you got to print the entire page. That's nonsense. I print one blank sheet of paper at a time. Once I get the logo that I like, and again, I'm going to use the Marine Corps as an example. I got the logo that I want, and I print it on a blank sheet of paper. Then I lay my cutout piece of the transfer decal, and a little thin piece of tape on both sides. Put it back in the printer, and I print right on top of it. And so then I take that little square, which is about the size of a postage stamp, and then you have to use this stuff, which is color transfer. It's an aerosol spray. Comes in a little jar like this, about $5. You spray it, and then I wait, and I'll do it a second coat. Because the way the water slide works, you take that decal and dip it in water. In a little jar of water, a little bottle of water, and hold it for 5 seconds. Pull it out, and what happens is the water soaks up to the back, and it will slide off. But you literally have to lay it right on top, and if you push on the decal itself, you'll smear the ink. You'll smear your print. So I give it 2 coats, and be very patient. Use tweezers, and sometimes maybe the pressure should be on the base of the paper back, not on this. And you just slide it over. I love it because it's so forgiving. Whereas these other fingernail decals, you got one chance to get it right. and you're working blind because the decal's printed on the front side. And you're removing the paper blindly. Whereas with this, you basically line it up and just slide it on there. Make sure your surface is wet and your hands are wet, and then you position it, and then make sure there's no wrinkles. Anything like that's going to jump out, so it'd be a problem. But once you get it on there, you're just going to lay it flat, give it 10 minutes to dry, and then I'll chuck this up and put just a quick drop of coating on there, and it'll seal it up. And then I add probably a half dozen or more, 6 to 8, maybe 10 on these, because these are going to get wet and be in the bathroom somewhere. The other brushes, oh, here's one. There's another one floating around. So yeah, the idea, these are reporting for duty. This is bloodwood and blackwood with an aluminum insert. That was an aluminum tube with yellow heart inlay within the American, or the holly on the bottom side. This is African blackwood, and then yellow heart, brass, and acrylic. You can tell it, and this is again the Navy logo. So again, I'm trying to match colored themes. Yes, sir. Okay, anything that's brass with wood or plastic in wood, I use CA. If it's wood on wood, I'm using, for instance, with this, I'm using just tight bond wood glue. So the CA works on anything that I mean, I probably could use wood glue, but I just choose to use, if it's non-traditional wood on wood surface, I'm using CA. Yes. Tight bond, I think. Whatever. You know, when I place an order, I'm usually ordering a half a dozen pens and maybe some other supplies. And if I'm looking for a particular pen, I go to the PSI. I go to Woodcraft over in Overland Park, or I get Craft USA, and they're all very good and very good service. I ordered the wrong insert for this. Returned it, sent me the right one. Simple. Any other questions, thoughts? So yeah, this is then, I mean, if anybody's interested, that's a boar's head double-banded knot. And then the other ones I'll be setting up with badger hair knots. And another set of suppliers for that, whether it's eBay or international places, whatever. But there's a lot of places for that. And I don't know. I mean, these to me are heirloom. I mean, I'm not bragging about my artwork. I'm just saying that if you give somebody a quality shave brush that is an aficionado, they're going to go, well, that's awesome. That's cool. Because I've never seen anybody do this yet. So that's part of the reason why I choose to do it. Any other thoughts, questions? Yes? No? Okay, I'm done here.